Hello everyone, my name is Mama Bear Kylie, and instead of playing a game, I am actually going to try to react to a video. This video, SCP-5254, Gotta Catch the Mob by Dr. Bob. I watched a few of his videos. I think they're okay, but I don't know a lot about SCPs, so if you know about them, just let me know. So I am going to do this full screen, and I'm going to.
A grisly incident occurs inside the popular
That's
storefront
loud.
of
I'm
Nintendo
sorry.
World at Rockefeller Center, New York. It happens during the announcement event of a brand new Pokémon game, the highly anticipated sequel to the classic spin-off game Pokémon Conquest. Poké fans from all over the world have shown up in order to show
Are these things like real, like Pokemon con events like this? Are they real? I I never been in Pokemon myself, so I don't even know why I'm watching this one. And if I'm not a big fan of Pokemon myself.
their love for the collectible monster franchise. But in the mere moments before the trailer could be shown, a rotten stench fills the air. A wafting cloud of poison gas sweeps low through the crowd, and the effects are immediately hazardous. A pair of young children in matching purple sweaters, marked with a distinctive symbol seen on a poison-type Pokémon, begin coughing and wheezing. These are not victims of the poison gas, but rather its inexplicable source. As the gas spreads through the store, the children begin to turn a bright shade of purple, and their skin becomes craggy and porous.
Oh dang!
Even more alarming is the fact that the siblings begin to fuse together, limbs retracting into their bodies, as the larger of the two becomes little more than an enormous
Oops,
floating
sorry.
face, with the
What is that Pokemon?
younger as an
Oh,
attached.
hold on. Let me go back a bit. Okay, hold on.
Larger
Sorry.
of the two becomes little more than
That Pokemon. I'm not the only Pokemon I know. Well, two actually is Pikachu and Eevee. If I said Eevee's name right, but I don't know what that is. What is that Pokemon? And they look afraid. Would people actually be afraid if they got thrown into Pokemon? If you got thrown into like a Pokemon, what would you would be thrown into? Like, what would you like to be thrown into?
an enormous floating face, with the younger as an attached growth. The smog is so thick at this point that few are able to see that the two children now bear an uncanny resemblance to Pokémon number 110, Wheezing.
Easy.
The gas has been noticed by most of
Okay,
the adults
that's
in
my
the room,
answer.
and a panic has caused the crowd to begin trampling each other for the exit. In the midst of the confusion, several people step on the transmuted children, causing them to cry out in pain, and in a state of distress, they unleash the lethal Pokémon move known as Explosion. From the outside, a sudden blast can be seen roaring through the interior of the store.
Ooh.
The windows shatter immediately, and a heavily damaged life-size statue of the Nintendo character Donkey Kong comes sailing out into the street, where it lands roughly in the midst of New York traffic. The NYPD are en route to Nintendo World immediately,
I mean to
expecting that
chuckle.
some sort of bomb has gone off. There's no way they could have predicted what horrors awaited them at the scene. The unwilling Wheezing is not the only transformed human within the event, and indeed, some far more aggressive and dangerous monsters have been made there. A cosplayer in a onesie that had been designed to resemble Pokémon number 448, Lucario, has awakened her defensive sensory abilities on instinct to avoid the damage. But this protective power has come at the cost of her humanity. Blue fur erupts in tufts.
Again, would people actually be afraid if they got thrown into Pokemon? I truly, I don't think they would. Would they?
From her skin, and her face elongates into a distorted, canine muzzle. Panic spreads across the morphing face of the cosplayer, and as she tries to get clear of the chaos, her flailing limbs send other members of the fleeing crowd flying. The genetic alteration that gave her limbs and face a Lucario-like appearance have apparently changed her muscles to deliver spring-loaded blows on instinct. Another fan finds that his hoodie, which features the face of Pokémon number 94, Gengar, had bound itself to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have stuff to. I don't have YouTube Prime to skip YouTube.
Planet Fitness today
Not
and
YouTube.
save. Just $1 down,
Ads.
$15 a month.
Offer
I
ends May
don't have
16th.
YouTube Prime
To
to
him,
skip ads.
and caused his body to be partially insubstantial, as if it were made out of gas. He could barely control the direction his body traveled in as the wind pushed him out of the store. Several police cars arrive at Nintendo World and see the floating Pokefan rising like a ghost above the streets. He has become like a human balloon, and there is no apparent way to get him down.
Wait, how did he tone it looks like they were toning pretty fast, but when he was floating out of the window, he wasn't that. Like if you see, like, wait, yeah, that's him. That's his face right there. Where is there a better picture? I don't know, but you know, but how did he tone into that thing pretty fast?
Helicopter to arrive, and the rest proceed towards the source of the blast. Monster! Scream some of the fleeing survivors, pointing at the Lucario cosplayer.
Oh, that's just mean. That is mean. Because I don't think Pokemon are monsters, are they? Well, I know she was a human that got turned into a Pokemon, but still, I don't think Pokemon are monsters. Like I said, I don't know much about Pokemon, so if I'm wrong, just correct me.
She raises her hands defensively, but this has the side effect of causing the bioluminescent cells that are now part of her paw hands to glow. The glare from this sudden reaction draws the guns of the cops, who aim for the cosplayer, unsure of what weapon she's carrying. "Stay where you are! Drop your weapon!" the officers shout. "Help me, please!" The Lucario cosplayer drops to her knees, reducing her threat level. From out of the smoke of the store come several more transmuted humans, most of them injured by the explosion.
Ooh.
There was a three-legged being covered in
sorry.
pitch black fur and sores weeping with yellow pus.
What?
Pokemon number 197,
Okay.
Umbreon, but its front leg was still a human arm. There was a bald blue man covered in a
Oh.
still growing turtle shell.
Ooh, I think that would have poets being torn into that. To the total.
Middle-aged Pokemon number 7,
Oh.
Squirtle.
Okay, that, yes.
Smashing its way through the solid cement was a predator that was sleek in body, yet uncanny in movement. Pokemon number 445, Garchomp, a scaled humanoid monster that dragged its belly on the ground. The police were horrified as this legion of monsters crawled out into the street. Decades of media and conditioning led the cops to the only solution their currently broken minds could process. They opened fire with their firearms and screamed like babies at the scary.
I don't think shooting would do anything to them. Because if they got, I know it's humans turning into Pokemon, but still, if they have the power of Pokemon, I don't think shooting would do much to them. Correct me if you think I'm wrong.
Creatures. Acting on instinct, the Lucario cosplayer moved at incredible speeds and dodged several bullets. She ran into a nearby alleyway and vanished from view. The other monsters were less lucky. Umbreon took
Again, that is just mean, calling them monsters. Like, what are Pokemon? Like, there's another species, aren't they? In the Pokemon universe?
a few bullets and dropped, while the Squirtle retreated into his shell as the bullets bounced off of the back of it.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Let's go back. Let's go back. Where's the... Oh, I can't now. Okay, never mind. Oh, here it
The
is. I know.
Squirtle retreated into his shell as the bullets bounced.
This is what I'm talking about. The bullets are not going through the shell, but the cops are still using the gun on him? That doesn't make sense to me.
Off of the back of it. The Garchomp withstood a bit of weapons fire, but then burrowed into the street to escape. It soon found itself in a currently empty subway tunnel and made a mad dash for its escape from the authorities. Back above ground, the cops searched vigilantly for more of the creatures. As the helicopter sailed in, the floating Gengar drifted towards a tall building, phasing in through an open window. Once inside, the humanoid ghost Pokemon
Does this Pokemon usually this float around? Does he have controlling of his floating? I'm not talking about the human himself. I'm talking about the Pokemon, like in the Pokemon universe. Does he have the control of where he can go or can't go?
found itself much more comfortable in the shadows. The various employees of the office floor didn't feel the same and were stricken with fear as they observed Pokemon number 94 turn invisible. His enlarged, grinning face disappearing as if he were the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. When firefighters started to mitigate damage at the scene, it became clear that at least...
And there's another ad. Again, I'm sorry about the ads.
I can tell when someone's lying. It's kind of a thing I do.
You redhead guy.
I don't care. I just want to get back to the video. Thank you.
At least 3 monsters were still on the loose. For now, the transformation instances were contained to the destroyed storefront of Nintendo World in Rockefeller Center. But if affected individuals were contagious, then the situation could go from bad to worse.
Could say it says, like, how would they, well, like by breathing on people or touching them? Does it look like they only got affected by whatever was in that building? So I don't think they could spread it.
At an alarming rate. The police established a perimeter and used their private radio to put out an alert to every officer in New York that there were apparently monsters walking the earth. Descriptions of the roaming Pokemon that were still at large were given, and this prompted a lengthy discussion over the radio about the logic of Pokemon existing in the real world.
Yeah, that's one thing people would talk about. Like if someone did got turned into a Pokemon, I don't think people would actually believe it. Like some people would because I'm sure they're a huge fan of Pokemon, but there's other people who will try to say, ask the person there's something wrong with them. So if someone came to you and said Pokemon were real, what would you say? Would you believe them or would you call them crazy?
Several of the senior officers didn't have any knowledge of the Pokemon franchise and had significant difficulty being brought up to speed on the events of the day. Despite the initial snafu in communication, the extraordinary details of the case became known to every available officer. There were 3 suspects: Pokemon number 448, Lucario, Pokemon number 94, Gengar, and Pokemon number 445, Garchomp.
So they're just using their Pokemon name? Because from the last few videos I've seen of Dr. Bob, most of these people do not have names unless it's connected to, I think it's just the doctors and agents of SCP. But still, why would they just using the names of the Pokemon? I think it's because to help them look for them better.
The mission objective was to catch them all. With his invisibility and ghost-like material properties, Gengar had no difficulty hiding out in the office building. Though a brief look in one of the bathrooms showed him that invisibility was the best option for other reasons, as his face and body had deformed to the point that his head and torso had been fused together.
If you were this Pokemon, would you hide or would you not hide? I don't know what would be a good option.
Additionally, spined growths of cartilage had begun to line his back, and they were starting to itch terribly. His eyes had enlarged and were now completely bloodshot red with dilated pupils. It would be a miracle if anyone recognized him as a human being in the shape he was in. His mind could hardly cope with it.
I don't think anyone will see you as a human. I don't think so. Unless if you my viewers think I'm wrong, then just comment below.
The change and created a false narrative to spare his sanity.
I'm dead. That's it. I died from that explosion and turned into a ghost like Gengar.
It wasn't the most convincing or uplifting lie to believe, but it was enough to keep him from the risk of exposing his nightmarish form to other human beings. He became determined to haunt the office building as subtle as he could, until things made sense again, even if they never did. Gengar turned invisible again and faded into a non-existent presence within the building. He drifted unseen from workspace to workspace, unaware that his transformation was a curse that could be passed on.
Oh, I think that answered my question from Olio. So yeah, it could spread, so.
For many office workers with Pokemon desk toys, and while the effects wouldn't be immediate, a dull ache began to set in across the office floors as bodies started to prepare themselves or transformation. Meanwhile, on the mean streets of New York, Lucario ran as fast as she could, quickly realizing that her muscles had become capable of great strides and leaps. She was able to scale brick walls and leap between rooftops like a trained parkour expert, and the exhilaration of
Why did that jump kind of remind me of the Ninja Turtles? I know they jump like roof from roof, but that scene that does remind me of that. I'm sorry, off topic. Back to the
physical
video.
feats almost counterbalanced the sheer, mind-numbing terror of losing her original body to the Pokemon transformation. The sudden growth of a fuzzy tail from her lower spine jolted her back to the fear response, however, and in full panic.
Then there's a ad.
Jordan Davis here. Cannot tell y'all how excited I am to partner with
Oh,
Wolverine.
I don't care.
Mode.
There we go.
She refused to look at herself until she had successfully made it back to her apartment. The sounds of helicopters in the sky convinced her to stay away from the rooftops and move through the side streets until she was back in her neighborhood. Along the way, a young girl who was walking with her mother recognized Lucario and pointed her out. "Mommy, look! It's Lucario!" The mother
Why do kids point stuff out like that? Like, I'm not. Well, I don't think it's just kids, but it's mostly kids that point things out. I know they notice a lot of things, a lot more things than adults do, but still, it's like they shouldn't be pointing things out like that. I don't believe so.
took one look at Lucario and screamed, prompting Lucario to run away from the family as rapidly as she could. She tried to deny what was happening, but also had the sense to not pass through the front desk area of her apartment building. For some reason, all she could think of was Spider-Man, and the many scenes from various movies in which Peter Parker or Miles Morales had to hide their powers and abilities. In a very Spider-Person-like move, Lucario
Can it climb? Can that Pokemon climb like Spider-Man? Although even when he's talking about the Pokemon itself, saying what they have, is it true? 'Cause like I said, I'm not a big Pokemon fan myself, but I'm not. Some of these doesn't seem right. If I'm wrong, please let me know.
climbed in through the window. She didn't even have time to ponder how easy it had been to break into her own apartment before she took full stock of her situation. The transmutation into Lucario persisted and had even absorbed her onesie into her biomass while removing its synthetic properties. The change was, to put it mildly, less aesthetically seamless than she hoped. Her mouth was somewhere between a wolf muzzle and human lips and looked completely mangled from most angles. The blue tufts of fur that were Lucario's trademark were patchy and didn't fully cover her body. The bioluminescence that had alarmed the cops earlier was now randomly occurring on her body with no rhyme or reason. She had never considered herself part of that side of the Pokemon fandom, but even by their arcane yet discerning standards, her body had become hideous. Lucario wept, unable to imagine what she would do with herself. How would she tell her family, her friends, her boyfriend? Her life as a person was essential.
Again, would people actually be upset if they got thrown into a Pokemon? Personally, I don't think a lot of people would. If they are a fan of Pokemon, probably not. Maybe not. I'm not saying all of them would enjoy it, but I'm saying I don't think they would get upset. Some of them.
Essentially over. And based on the attention the whole event had gotten from the police, he was most likely going to be followed by the law until her dying days. Down beneath the surface of the city, the third suspect, Garchomp, had been roaming through the subways and drawing a bit of attention. His movement through the tunnels had caused a great deal of collateral damage as his claws rend the concrete and stone. When the blinding lights of an oncoming
Why are some of these people that get thrown into fully Pokemon, but some of them are like looks like hybrids of Pokemon? Isn't whatever that thing in the beginning of the video turned them into Pokemon? Like full on Pokemon, not just hybrids of Pokemon?
train shone on him, Garchomp found out exactly how fast he could move, though that may have been adrenaline. He had to make a quick escape from the train and wound up on a crowded subway terminal where many onlookers snapped pictures of the apparent shark monster. Garchomp scrambled to try and find a place to hide, but the platform had so many people that trying to get through them resulted in bloodshed. Garchomp's
Ooh.
rough scales flensed the skin right off several passersby, and his dorsal growths on his limbs were sharper than an iron blade. People started throwing things and shooting small arms at the monster, but Garchomp's skin was impervious to such weapons. Even the police
Again, I know we keep commenting on the same thing, but I don't think guns would do anything to Pokemon, would they? Are there even guns in the shows? I don't believe so. I don't know how many like series or shows there are about Pokemon, but if you're a fan, are there even like guns or anything similar to guns in the show?
bullets from earlier had been unable to pierce through the scales, but there was a cost to being bulletproof. The weight of the scales forced Garchomp to crawl clumsily along the ground, only reinforcing its appearance.
Yeah,
What can
there's
you
another
do
ad.
with $1.60?
3/4 of a pack of gum.
Hopefully half a soda.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I can.
I don't know what that was
of
about.
monstrosity in the eyes of the public. Garchomp could still feel the pain of the impacts, like hard slaps against his skin. He almost wanted to cry from the pain, but there were no tear ducts behind his eyes anymore.
I don't think Pokemon cry, do they? If they do, which Pokemon do? If any Pokemon cry, which ones do? Like from what it sounds like this one doesn't, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not a big fan on Pokemon.
Somehow, at the same time, something snapped inside of Garchomp. He wanted the violence to stop and no longer cared how it did. And so,
Whoa.
the transformed human went into a violent rampage that didn't recede even when the cops arrived. During this violent massacre, Garchomp had dissociated from the situation and felt like he could see the Pokemon that his body had begun to imitate facing off against a horde of enemies. He came to picture the other people as wild Pokemon themselves, and from his out-of-body vantage point, he saw himself as a Pokemon trainer, commanding himself in monster-to-monster combat. Go, Garchomp! I choose you! You'll never lose to them! Mach Punch! Outrage! Earthquake! Outside of the sub.
Was that supposed to be based off of what's his name? Ash? That's one character I know for Pokemon. I had a cousin and uncle that was into Pokemon. That's Ash, wasn't it?
Subway, there were tanks and other heavy-duty weapons ready to engage if Pokemon number 445 came to the surface. But unfortunately, it seemed to remain underground and in the presence of civilians. The only options remaining were to filter poisonous gas into the subway to knock the creature out, but there was still too much risk of innocent casualties. Though the cops did take down Garchomp with a rocket launcher, the incident was highly public, and the destruction caused in the firefight was unprecedented and brutal. Both Gengar and Lucario learned about the incident themselves later that evening, and it only strengthened their resolve to stay hidden and avoid contact with the outside world.
Again, would this actually happen? Like, I do believe officers would try to destroy creatures that look like Pokemon, but I also think there are people who would protect the Pokemon because you know what I'm saying, like protect them because they think it's cool and they end up real life. So
Over the next few days, an elaborate media cover-up managed to spin the incident as a bombing of Rockefeller Center, unrelated to the Pokemon event or franchise. This was partially due to a certain powerful foundation pulling strings to ensure that the publicity of this event would not be focused on the humanoid Pokemon. This shift in reporting was spurred along by the distribution of amnestic drugs throughout Manhattan. As for any blind spots, the biggest asset to the cover-up was that it happened in the Big Apple. Weirder things have and are assumed to have happened every day in the city that never sleeps. And the jaded mindset of the denizens meant that all the rumors would fade away in a short while. But the threat of Pokemonification still loomed throughout the world, wherever the merchandise was freely circulated. Thus, in the modern day, a new war on Pokemon, a colder and more secretive war, was being fought through espionage and decisive operations. Though it might be infeasible to imagine that all memorabilia and products of the Pokemon Company could be seized by the authorities, the SCP Foundation has assigned much of its resources to scanning the existing stock for a
Do you actually believe there could be a like government that would try to hide up? Yeah, actually, never mind. I do believe like assaulting government. I'm not talking like I don't believe the SCP is like real, like you know, but government would hide things to make people not look into it. If you hold on why they created Frozen, that's people trying to hide stuff. Some people believe. I don't believe in that theory. I just think they just created Frozen just to create it, not to hide anything.
Catalytic component that results in the baleful transformation. This irreversible condition has been given the item designation of SCP-5254 and is considered part of the Keter object class. Of the 34 instances of
Is Keto not Keto? Is that like? I'm trying to think. I'm sorry. Do they consider them as like threats, like bad threats? Oh, not really. People who are known for know about SCPs, let me know.
SCP-5254
And there's an ad. Yeah, I don't have like the prime for it, so.
transformation that occurred following the incident in New York. Only Pokemon 94, Gengar, and Pokemon number 448, Lucario, seemed to survive the day. Those that were neutralized through violence were also not the norm, as the vast majority of victims of SCP-5254 lost their lives during the process of the transformation itself.
That is kind of sad. Like, they just wanted to enjoy a day about Pokemon, and then they just lose your life because of like something like that happening. That is sad.
It's not hard to imagine the more humanoid and relatively human-sized Pokemon were a better fit for the continued life of the victim, as those who were changed into creatures with non-human body plans fared far less well on average. Pokemon with an insect-like or serpentine form showed a particularly low rate of survival among SCP-5254 instances, and this was also true for Pokemon that were more abstract in nature, such as many Pokemon.
Hold on. How do they actually look into that to see who survived and who didn't? Like, how would they actually know? Like, I know they won't dare, but and I also know a little about SCPs. They will like the agents and the rituals. Wow, the people. Well, I'm sorry, I can't speak. I know they will look into it. Well, excuse me, I'm sorry. But how do they actually know? Onto the video.
Pokemon based on inanimate objects. The SCP Foundation's official containment procedures when it comes to SCP-5254 is to terminate all instances, not only because of the irreversible harm.
Wait, so they won't hold them in? They would just give like, oh, you're lost cause, we can't save you, that type of crap? Wow. Do they really not care about like people's lives like that? That's awful and heartless.
Harm and life-threatening condition inflicted on the victims, but due to the contagious nature of the SCP. As long as there is at least one human transformed by the effects of SCP-5254, there is an increased risk of other victims to experience their own transformation events. The greater the clustering of SCP-5254 affected individuals, and the greater each individual's knowledge and affinity for the Pokemon franchise is, the more rapid the onset and severe the effects of the SCP-5254 transformation are. Extensive testing performed with D-Class personnel has also shown without a doubt that official apparel from the Pokemon Company is where the start of SCP-5254 begins, and that the vast catalog of collectible fictional creatures is narrowed down to single choice by whatever creature the individual most closely resembles at the time of the transformation. The effects are slightly diminished or delayed if the article of official Pokemon clothing depicts multiple creatures, but there's no guarantee that the individual won't experience a change in pigmentation of the skin or the growth of animalistic.
So if they have like two Pokemon on their shirts, would they fuse those two Pokemon together, or would that choose one or the other? Now I think of it, it's like it's saying that if they have it on their show. Like if you have Pikachu on your show, you will turn into Pikachu. But if you have Pikachu and Eevee, would it fuse it together or just choose one or the other?
Features in keeping with the most prominently displayed Pokemon. The lethality of the transformation varies, but the alterations happen on a cellular and genetic level. Autopsies of SCP-5254 instances have shown that organs and bones might be entirely replaced by foreign organic material. Because very little of the original victim's body remains after a transmutation event, the extreme anomalous science involved in the creation of SCP-5254.
Oh, that's just wrong. I'm sorry, but I don't know what kind of Pokemon that's trying to show, but that's a human head with a human hands and a Pokemon body. That is disturbing. But that doesn't mean to end them. Like, you should not think they're the lost cause or anything. It's like, just lock them up. Yes, that's non-humane, but still, if you don't want them spreading it, why don't you just lock them up?
54 remains beyond the SCP Foundation's ability to remedy or combat, even through the most extensive reconstructive surgeries. There is still an ongoing search for a person of interest who is known by the internet handle Sir Viper and believed to be the culprit behind SCP-5254. A chain of email correspondence between Sir Viper and the employees of the Pokemon Company have been archived from the Foundation, and it seems as though the Keter-class SCP was allowed to happen in an official capacity because the Pokemon Company provided Sir Viper with some official merchandise in exchange for the promise of Pokemon being brought to life. The stockholders seem to agree that a world where Pokemon were tangible, breathing beings was one where even greater profits could be achieved, but the human toll and the reality of the product was anything but what they expected. One detail of the fiction.
That is why you don't just agree to anything, because you don't know what the outcome will be.
Fictional world building in the Pokemon video games that is often overlooked, even by the creators themselves, is the adjacency between human beings and Pokemon when both exist within the same world. Though humans possess the power to build civilizations and cultivate ideals, Pokemon are equally powerful in the natural and spiritual worlds. They occupy a parallel existence that brings a cyclical balance to the world. While conventional science could never create a Pokemon, and the real world's evolutionary ecosystem could never produce one.
Actually, now I think of it, science, we gone so far in science. They actually brought a instinct, I think it was a wolf or a fox back. So it's not hard to believe they might be able to do Pokemon. If you disagree, just tell me down below. And if you agree with me, just also tell me down below.
Sir Viper is most likely someone who realized that the key ingredient needed to manifest real-life Pokemon is humanity itself. His experiments into human transmutation are founded on a philosophical basis rather than a literal one, focused on the inherent connection between Pokemon and people. The world cannot have one without the other, and in Sir Viper's eyes, the human lives sacrificed to bring Pokemon from the fictional world into this one were merely a redundancy. A mad scientist with a special interest in Pokemon, a worldwide franchise with more robust marketing arms than Pokemon number 68, Machamp, and the hapless runaway victims of transmutation who are still unwittingly spreading the anomaly. The SCP Foundation must endeavor to gain control of all three if it wishes to bring an end to SCP-5254. Check out the Dr. Bob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of Dr. Bob, like SCP-674, the exposition gun makes Nintendo real life.
Okay, so I was thinking of, and there's an ad. I'm sorry about the ad. Okay, so I was thinking, is saying that if you were dressed up a Pokemon, okay, right? You get turned into in that Pokemon. Like if you were dressed as Pikachu, you get turned into that Pikachu. Okay, what about if you were dressed like Ash or one of Ash's friends or a human villain? Do you get turned into that villain, or do you still get turned into a Pokemon? I'm a little confused about that. Like I seen that clip of people running. I think hold on, where was it? I don't know where that clip was. Hold up. I don't know where that clip was, but the clip of there was I wonder if it's in the. Where is it? There was a clip. There was one clip that someone was running, and he or she had the purple hair, and I don't know. It was like a white shorts. I don't know what the name of that character is, but would he or she turn into that character? That's what I'm kind of confused about. Like, are you just going to be turned into Pokemon, or all the characters in Pokemon, not just the species? Anyway, enough with me talking. If you enjoyed me reacting to this video, I could do more videos, like reacting to more SCP videos or other channels about SCPs, unless you want me to react to other items, like other contact, like this I could react to was a mind pulse or microwave society. Oh, anything that you guys would like me to. So this is my first reaction video. So if you like it, please comment below if you want more of this kind of videos. So thank you for watching and have a great day.